Hey there, CJ Math students. Welcome to Notes 2.12. So remember our integer operation rules are also up on the chalkboard, but for adding and subtracting, we fall under these rules. Remember, key changes only for subtraction problems. And then for multiplying and dividing, we fall under these rules. Same signs positive, different signs negative. So you really got to determine, first of all, what type of problem it is, and then apply the rule. So for instance, let's just, again, do multiplying and dividing rational numbers. So for number 1, we have 8 times negative 0.25. Well, our type there is a DSN, different signs negative. And you're allowed to use your calculator, but if you wanted to set this up, I'd put the longer number on top, 0.25 times 8, and I'd go to work here. Remember, this is 40, so carry the 4. This is 20, so carry the 2. And you end up being swooping twice, so once, twice. So your answer is negative 2.00, right, or just negative 2. Type for number 2, again, DSN. Remember to make a fraction into a whole number. We do negative 1/2 times 12 over 1. We say, oh, I can cross cancel the 2's. That 2 becomes a 1. This 12 becomes a 6. And then for multiplying fractions, you just multiply straight across, right? So we've got 1 times 6 is 6, or a negative. 1 times 6 is a negative 6 over 1. And your answer is just a negative 6, right? And then for dividing fractions, again, we got a DSN here, different signs negative. Remember, to divide fractions, you got to convert it of a mixed number to an improper fraction first. So really, this is negative 6 over 1 divided by 4 over 3. And then remember, when we divide fractions, we flip the second fraction, right? So negative 6 over 1 times 3 over 4. We can cross cancel the 6 and 4 dividing by 2. So this negative 6 becomes a negative 3, and this 4 becomes a 2. Multiply straight across. Gets you a negative 9 over 2. And obviously, 2 goes into negative 9. You could do it negative 4 times with 1/2 left over. Right? So that's just kind of basic general review of how to multiply, divide rational numbers. So now we say, okay, let's go ahead and actually work this with a more difficult problem. So when we look at a problem like this, and we have 16 times negative 3/8 plus 6 times 1 over 4, you always want to create everything into fractions. And if you see any division, you want to change it into multiplication. So I would rewrite this as 16 over 1 times 3 over 8 plus, I'm going to put a big space between this, 16 over 1 times 1/4. There's one negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative. So I'll just put it negative right there. All right, I look to cross cancel. So I've got, I can divide by 8 here. This becomes a 1. This becomes a 2. I divide by 4 here. This becomes a 1. This becomes a 4. Right? Now I'll go ahead and multiply straight across. I'll do this, and I'll do this and this. And the plus sign will stay in the middle. Right? So it becomes 6 over 1 plus 4 over 1. Notice we got common denominators, so that's just 10 over 1. 10 divided by 1 is just 10, right? But notice how I already put my negative down in my answer, so therefore I'm not going to mess up. It's a negative 10. Let's take a look at a problem like number 5, right? 4.2 times a negative 1/3 divided by 1 over 6 times negative 10, right? 4.2, you're going to want to change into a fraction and say, hey, that's 4 2/5, right? You can use your calculator on that. Times 1/3. Divided by, we want to flip, so that becomes times 6 over 1 times 10 over 1. Notice I have 2 negatives, so my answer is going to be positive answer, so I don't have to worry about putting a negative in my answer. First, before I do this, I want to change 4 2/5 into an improper fraction, right? So that becomes 22 over 5 times 1/3 times 6 over 1 times 10 over 1. Now let's use the commutative property to rearrange some stuff so that we could do some cross canceling. I like that 1/3 and 6 over 1 are by each other because I could do that cross canceling. But wouldn't it be nice if 10 over 1 was by 22 over 5 so I could cross cancel the 5 and 10? So let's do that. 22 over 5 times 10 over 1 times 1 over 3 times 6 over 1. Again, I'm just using the commutative property of multiplication here. So can divide both these by 5, so that becomes a 1, that becomes a 2. And divide both these by 3, so that becomes a 1, and that becomes a 2. So now, what looked like a super difficult problem became super easy. So what is 22 times 2? Well, that's 44. And what's 44 times 1? That's still 44. And then what's 44 times 2? Well, that's 88. And then on the bottom, what is 1 times 1, which is 1, times 1, which is still 1, times 1, which is still 1. So our answer here is positive 88. All of that work, and looks super confusing, but very easy after I create everything as a fraction, change all division to multiplication. Alright, so you've got two problems down here that, again, you're going to want to change all division to multiplication by flipping them. All the whole numbers, make them into fractions. And go ahead and try and solve those on your own. So what's the answer for number 6 in that puzzle? And then what's the answer for number 7 in that puzzle? Alright, on the back side, I'm just going to go ahead and do 1 or 2 problems, and you're going to try and finish them on your own. So basically, you want to rearrange this so that you can look to cross cancel. It would be nice if 3 over 2 and 1/3 were next to each other. So first of all, I got 3 negatives. So your answer is definitely going to be negative. So whatever your answer is, just put a negative sign there now. And rewrite it. So 3 over 2 times 1/3 times 1/4 times 5/3, right? Cool. So if I do this division, I can say, okay, this both can be divided by 1. Nothing else really to cross cancel, so multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, times 1 is still 1, times 5 is 5, right? 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 4 is 8, 8 times 3 is 24, so 5 over 24, so your answer is negative 5 over 24. Okay, again, you're just using the commutative property of multiplication to rearrange stuff. So 1 and 1/2, obviously change it to improper fraction first. So you got 3 over 2 times 3 over 2 times 3 over 4 times 3 over 2. So anything I can cross cancel here? Nothing here, nothing here. Nope, doesn't look like it. Even if I rearrange stuff, it doesn't look like I can cross cancel anything here. So it's going to be 3 times 3, which is 9, times 3, which is 27, times 3, which is 81, and 2 times 2, which is 4, times 4, which is 16, times 2, which is 32. So then you go ahead and solve that. Also, you only have one negative, so that means that your answer will be negative, right? So 32 goes into 81. Again, you can use that function on your calculator of 81 over 32, and then hit the second x10 button. Gives you a negative 2 and 17 over 32. So you're responsible for 6 and 8 in Edpuzzle. And lastly, 9 through 12, again, all you're going to do is flip first before you even look to cross cancel. So you get 2 over 3. Notice if you cross cancel here, you would have messed up. So you got to flip first, and then point out that, hey, there are 2 negatives. That's a big step that you can't forget, because if there's only one negative, your answer is going to be negative. But since there's 2 negatives, now your answer is positive. Multiply straight across. I get 10 over 9, which convert to 1 and 1/9. So that's it. You got the rest on your own. Once this is done, you may go ahead, after you finished every problem on here, you may go ahead and go on to the homework.